Hello, Billy the Artist here, back with another how to draw lesson, and today we are doing Jimin from BTS. Now, we have done 4 of the fellas so far. We have done Jungkook, we have done V, we have done Sugar and Suga, and we have done RM, Mr. Rap Monster, and they are all up in the How to Draw Portraits playlist. And we are going to do a number 5, and then we've got 2 more to do. After them, we have Jin and J-Hope to complete the full BTS guys. Before we go any further, please do like and subscribe. Tick the bell to be notified when new How to Draw lessons become available. And then we can do even more. But again, do check out the How to Draw Portraits playlist. Link in the cards and in the description. That would be absolutely fantastic. And there's lots on there. And there's also the short time lapses as well. Now, somebody did leave a comment on a time lapse not long ago, and they were a little bit concerned because they said, "Oh, you know, where's the grid and everything?" It's like, that's the time lapse, that's the overview. The lesson is a lot longer. And again, it's just great that new people are coming along, finding the time lapses and wondering where the lessons are. But anyway, it's always in the cards or in the video description. That's what I try and do. Now, there is also the How to Draw Harry Potter playlist. That has lots of characters on. When we finish BTS, I will do some more Harry Potter. And there's lots of others because, I mean, there's just so much. There is the Avengers, there is Game of Thrones, there is Star Wars, there is Lord of the Rings, there is Stranger Things, there's lots of things. There's singers, there's actors, there's... The list is amazing. Computer games characters, TikTok stars, YouTube stars. You know, you guys are asking for so many. It's only little old me. I'm doing what I can. It's great my channel is growing. I am loving doing this. And if you haven't seen it, there is a little slideshow. There's 2 now. I've done the second one where you can see people have tagged me with the hashtag Drawing with Billy. And they share with me and tag me on Instagram and other social media, and it's just lovely to see what you guys are doing. You know, people from 8 to 80 are enjoying the videos, and that's the joy of drawing. That's what I enjoy doing. I did actually have someone say to me in a comment that, you know, oh, you know, not everyone's creative. Now, when I was at university many moons ago, it was over, you know, I am that old, it's BC, before cyberspace, before the internet, I was doodling and drawing. And when I was at university, we were given a study that showed us that in the UK, and it's similar elsewhere, especially in Western nations, up until the age of 5, over 95% of the population was creative. Then they entered school. Dropped to less than 5% until retirement age of 65. So this was in the late 80s, early 90s. And it just showed that most people are creative, which is why I love sharing these videos. And again, there's the How to Draw videos. Over 130, 140 now lessons on there, basic characters. It's absolutely fantastic to do this. I will be getting back to doing some more basic characters, but I love showing how what looks like a complex portrait is a simple thing to do. That's a joy to share with you guys. Anyway, we will now get to the A4 piece of paper. Let me just gently move those gentlemen out of the way. Here we have an A4 piece of paper. Check the link now in the cards. It's also in the description to how to lay down these grids. Now, that's a real-time video. It's about 26 minutes long, and you see all the grids that I do and why I do this and why I have a centre line. I don't just start the 2 centimetre grids in the corner. Right now, in the banner, this is the dimensions that you need for the actual drawing, and it's a 2 centimetre grid where the main art actually is. So you've got this 5 centimetre little border around the edge. A4 paper, smooth cartridge paper, that's just all that I use. Normal drawing paper, you can use any paper you want. Well, this is just what I do to teach you, because it's the most basic drawing paper. So I've got a 2 centimetre grid, but I have this 105 centre line. It's just great to have the centre line to just work everything off. And then you build everything up from there. So they're all set at 2 centimetre grid intervals. Now, the image for Jimin is in my YouTube community tab. So if you go to my YouTube channel, on the community tab, there will be, and in the description, I will put the link in the description directly to the post where you can get the image for this drawing. Now, I base all of this not even just using the grids, but also using shapes. If you check in the cards now and the description, there is How to Draw Anything Part 1. I say in there you can draw anything from a bird, a bee, a flea, a tree, a horse, a house, or anything else, including these portraits. And it just shows you using basic shapes. That's how you build everything up. So now there's a lot of info there. We need to just get on with drawing. There we have the trusty 2B pencil, and we are now going to get on and draw Jimin. And we're going to start because we're using these grids. And remember, in the community page on my YouTube, that's where you'll find this, the reference image for the art. Now, we're going to start from the center line. I'm going to come down to below the 1, 2, 5. So now here, we've got a big triangle of shade, and we can see this triangle there. Now this grid and these lines I draw down very much darker than you need to. Now inside here I've got another triangle, and then inside this box I am drawing a rectangle and then a semicircle, and that's where his left eye is. But you can see we've got this shade. Now above it we've got his hair and his eyebrow. So what I'm doing is I'm just drawing a rectangle there for the edge of his eyebrow, and his eyebrow comes all the way over to about 2/3 just before the 145 line, between 125 and 145, the vertical. So I've got a rectangle there, and that's where his eyebrow goes. And then coming up through the center line, through the center of the 105 horizontal, we can come up and we've got a V here. So between the 65 and the 85, you can see here we've got just a V shape. And then we can indicate that hair that comes down. But even here, this is just a long, simple V. That's that hair shape. Now, and this shows you using the grid and using the reference, you can then just use shapes. So here we've got a kind of diamond shape. And that comes across between the 65 and 45, comes down, curves down. That's the edge of his forehead to the hair, and then comes across to the 125. Now, this then, you've just got this C shape that comes up into the dark. You can see like a capital C. And then you've got the curve of this hair, this stylized hair that comes right the way across and just makes a big capital C. And then above, we've got a kind of shark's fin. And that's the light of the hair that comes up to the 45 on the 65. So there's the curve. And then as we come down, you can see there, and this is how I tell you about using shapes. You've got a shark's fin. It's that simple. Now we come down from the eye to the edge of the right eye, the edge of the right side of his face. We haven't put the eye in yet, but here we've got like an upside down shark's fin. I mean, you can see there, it's like a crescent moon that's going all the way up, that shape there. And that's to the edge of his face there. Now, this eye, his right eye, I'm going to draw a little rectangle, and then we've got the semicircle of his eye underneath, and then I want a triangle. That's gone a little bit too far, just coming to the right of the 65. And then we want another, just a curved rectangle that's the upper eyelid shape above. And then we've got another rectangle, and you can see how it's in line with this eyebrow here, but just slightly curved because of the shape of the forehead and the upper part of his right eye socket. And then we can curve that shape over. And already you can see we've got shapes appearing for Jimin's head. Now, here we've got his nose right on the 85 line. We've got a little bit between the 145 and the 165. We've got a kind of rectangle of shadow that comes down to the edge of his nose. Now, here past the center line, we've got just a D shape. That's the edge of his nose on that side. But I'm just going to draw an ellipse. You can imagine the ellipse going around at the top. So you just don't draw the top and then you haven't got to rub it out. That's a bonus. Now, again, you've got a kind of little tadpole shape here. So we've got a little oval right on the center line. It curves over, and that's his left nostril. And then we come down, and we've got the edge of the nose here, which is that C shape. And then we've got his next nostril, which comes just over. Again, we've got this nice curve, but you can see there's a kind of T shape. And that creates the dark for the nostril inside. And the outer part of his nostril does come down to that center line. Now, if we come down a little bit further, we've got a little triangle there, and this is for his mouth. And then we want, so you've got a V there. You can see that's, in fact, I just need to come in with a little rub it because I don't want that dark line above. Too much. So the V comes down under the 185 line. And then we can see there's a diagonal line here from the corner of his mouth that comes over to pretty much halfway, but below the halfway point vertically. And that's the curve in between his mouth. And then we can just curve that shape up to the V that we've drawn. There's the center of his mouth. Now we want the lower lip. That's going to curve round. Again, we've got a little V shape there, a little chevron shape for the side of the mouth. And there you can see a V for the edge of the mouth as well. So again, coming down to the chin, and it's just the soft light, you know, rather than drawing big boxes and shapes, we can take our time and actually draw. And it's the shapes of the shadows. So here, I've just got a little rectangle for the shadow on the nose, the side of the nose here. Little rectangle there. We've got a V shape that's going to come off for the side of the shadow on the side of his face going up. Underneath the eye here, we've got a little box, and that's going to carry the shadow up. Again, we can draw the head down here on this below the 165 to the 65. You can see we've got a little triangle, but it's just slightly curved, and that's the edge of his face. And then you've got a triangle here for that side of his face, and then that comes down into the next square, and then just kinks over to the 85 205 point. And you see there's a little triangle there at the bottom. And again, we can just draw that down. So we're using the grid lines as reference points. So here now, coming off above the 185, about a third of the way down, we've got the shoulder. And again, I'm just coming back in now with quick shapes. That's going to come out there. And then this comes right the way down. We've got this curve that comes to the 245. And that's the edge of his sleeve. Then you've got the kind of cricket tank top jumper. That's going to come down there. And then we want to curve this over. This comes right over to the 85 line. And 205, yep, that needs to go up a bit higher. 205, that comes down. and then that goes across to there. So now underneath his chin here we've got, you can see here we've got this triangle shape. You can imagine the triangle going further up, that's the collar. And then there's a little rectangle where the white of the collar joins, and then right through this point we can come over to the 265. You can imagine that the collar goes underneath, but you've got a bit of the jumper that's tied over the top. So again, we've got this knot here underneath. Again, just drawing a triangle. We've got the direction of that going up. You see there's a rectangle shape there. So now we're drawing in the shapes. You see a little triangle there. And then this is going to curve. Here we want a D coming up to the 165 line. And it's about on the halfway point. Now we can bring the curve down of the collar, and it comes below the 225 and the 185. And we just want to bring that all the way down to join there. And then here we've got, you can see there we've got another V shape. Off the back we've got a little rectangle there, and then another rectangle there, and then a rectangle that gives us that little cream triangle there when we finish that in. So now if we come to the 165 line up to the 105, we want a little rectangle coming down to the 145. That's a box for his ear to go in. Then we've got a V shape for that hair there. That cuts across. Now the hair at the top, we're going to draw this up, and you can see how it goes up to the 105. Just that nice line just goes up, and we can indicate more lines as they come over. And then here we've got a triangle that comes over to past the 145. And then this comes down, curves out to join behind the ear. Again, the ear itself, there's a D shape there. And then we've got that further curve outside. There's a little circle for the little ear stud that he's got in. Now we come to the jaw, and we want to do the same. We're just going to be careful, and we're going to bring it down to join the chin. And we come down, curve across. It's just to the right on the 185 horizontal, and then just to the right of the 145 205. That's a bit like a dot to dot then. And that comes down, and we draw the chin across. And then we've got the neck curving out and comes down above the 185. That's where it goes inside the collar. And then we've got a little rectangle there for the hair. And then we've got these shapes. So there we've got a kind of diamond shape that will become the hair. Here we've got a V, and that goes up and joins between the 125 and 145, comes out through the 65 165 vertical, and then again at the back, and then from where his hair is on the center, from the 45, we're going to curve this over. And you can see how it comes through the 125 point on the 65 horizontal. And this is just giving us some direction for the hair. Now, we've also got where all the highlights are. So you can see from the 85 horizontal and the 85 going up, we've got a strong highlight on his blue hair. And so I'm just indicating some lines because that's where the highlight is going to be. And that's our cubist Jimin drawn down. So now we're going to come in and we're going to do a much more detailed line for Jimin. And I use this paper so as I don't smudge too much now, to keep the underdrawing actually clean. So now we've got the construction lines. And we're going to come in and we're going to start with his right eye. So we come down inside, right on the 105 line, and we just come inside it to where the tear duct is. And that is like a little V, just comes back across. And then we get this curve coming round and up, and this curves up to the corner of his eye, and then the upper curve of his upper eyelid comes across, and that goes right out just before the 125 line. It just kind of comes down, then we've got the curve coming down, forming that little shape. And then we've got a shadow diagonal little point coming off, and that curve comes right around underneath the eye up to the tear duct, edge of the tear duct. Then we've got the curved shape of his left eyeball, his iris. Again, he's got this kind of diagonal little highlight. But we need to bring that curve over. There's this little diagonal of highlight that we'll have, and this is a very dark eye. And we've got a very sharp, bright point. So I'm just drawing that. It's more of a square rather than a circle. And then I'm just indicating all the dark in very quickly. And this is all using a 2B pencil. And then the highlight is just a little bit lighter. And we want this curve indicating above. And then we got a little bit of, like a little triangle that comes out. You can see the shadow caused by the shape of his eye socket. Then we've got where his nose is. That's where the strongest highlight is, coming down and curving across. Now we come up to the eyebrow, and we're just indicating where the eyebrows are in the direction that they grow. And that's how you've just made them look real. So you've got those eyelashes that are pointing up towards the 85 line. And you just draw them in the area that you drew previously. And I'm just twisting the pencil so it's just got that sharper point as well. Then we've got this flow of hair that's coming down from just below the 65 line, right up here, comes down, curves through this point on the 85, 105, and then comes across over the eyebrow. And then we want the slightly wider V, how that goes up. It goes halfway between the 85 and the 105. Goes up above, and then we've got this kind of leaf shape that comes across to the center line. And then the same for that darker shape underneath. And the hair follows the line of his eyebrow as well. Then we've got a couple of little V shapes there. And this is just for the hair. Then we've got another V that comes up through that 125, 85 point. There's the up and then the down. So that goes across. And we've got the point of this hair coming down. And then it goes up to his ear. So we've got little bits at the bottom. That goes up to where his ear is. I'm just going to sharpen the pencil. We're going to do his right eye. We're going to do Jimin's right eye now. And so we follow the curve over, comes through the 65 horizontal. It's actually very dark. And then we've got a little bit of the white of his eye just past the 65 line. And then this curve comes around and then comes right up to the tear duct. Which again, we've got a lovely dark shape there. Now, the semicircle for his eye. That needs to come over a bit. Kind of nearly at the quarter point. Because the semicircle of his eye is about to the halfway line. And then we've got that very strong square highlight again. That kind of triangular highlight. And I'm just darkening down with the 2B pencil, because it is very dark inside that eye. And then on the highlight, but we'll make it much darker using the 4B or the 8B a little bit later. Now, we've got this very strong shadow, but I'm using the side of the pencil so as I'm not getting a sharp line coming down to where the nose is through the 165 horizontal. And then this curves around. You've got the C shape here. For underneath the nostril. That goes up. And then we've got the actual top of the nostril. Inside the dark. And then the left nostril. Okay, now we've got that kind of tadpole shape. Curves over. Now already you can see we've got more definition starting to make Jimin look more real looking out of the page at us. So now we want his eyebrow. So just bringing those lines down a little bit lower. That was a little bit high. Going into the dark, and then this curves over, and you can see where it touches the 145 line. Now again, I'm drawing soft, using the soft side of the pencil, the shape of his eyebrow in. Again, we've got the edge of his forehead going into the dark, but we've got a brilliant patch of shadow. So I'm just indicating that patch of shadow quickly. And then we've got this C shape on this very stylized swoosh of hair coming across that's highlighted. And that goes up into the dark, and we can see where the dark starts, and that curves right the way up, and then you can see here you've got a kind of S shape that comes down, and that's the dark on the top, and then we've got the shark's fin that we had. But I'm now drawing the hair in as it goes over the right side of his head, as if I was brushing it, so as it's going in the right direction. And this comes right down by the right hand side of his head. And then you've got a little bit that comes out, and that goes up the side of his head. Now, side of his cheek, we're going to be very careful, twisting the pencil just so as I've got a sharper point. Then this comes down, just kinks out a little bit below the 165 and 185 to the 65 horizontal or vertical line. And it's these little shapes on the side of the cheek, rather than just drawing a smooth line down. This is what you need to get the authenticity in a portrait. And this comes down to the 105 centre line. Again, just getting a little bit too dark. The centre of his chin is right on the 225 horizontal. You can curve that around and up, and you get the kind of flat square front of the jaw, the chin at the front before it goes down the side of his jaw going up. Now again, I'm not going to draw this too dark because I don't want it to be a problem when we do the shading. Now his lips. So we've got that V shape in the top, and it curves down, comes in, then we've got this curve, this arc that comes right the way over to the side of his mouth. That's just to the left of the 125 vertical, below the 185. So I'm just using the soft end of the pencil. And then we've got the curve coming down, coming through the centre line of the lower lip. It comes across a bit, and then it goes up to this V. Now again, lips you can imagine like a heart shape there. And that helps. And you can see there we've got a darker shade in the upper part of that lip. Now coming off underneath his nose, we've got a diagonal line that comes right the way across the top of the right hand side of his lip. And then this is where we can indicate some of the shadows. Here we've got a C shape that comes down from underneath the chin. It's a bit like a shark's fin there. And that's the side of his mouth going up. Now if we come up to the top of his head, here we've got just some hair that is coming over, but you've got the top of the line that comes through the 105 centre line there, and then the hair curves up right to the 25 line and comes across down past the 145, 165, and then comes out between 165 and 185 right to the edge. And this point here on the 85 is where it comes out to and then starts to come back in. I'm just resting my hand then on top of my left arm on top of my right hand, so as I'm not using the paper, just to get that curve over. Now his ear is about a third over, and we can draw the edge out the very edge of his ear is about 3/4 of the way across the square, and it comes down to below the 125 line, and then curves across the bottom of his earlobe, curves across, comes through on about the 3rd on the 145, and then comes across and joins the edge of his upper cheek at the back of his jaw. Now, just to the right of the 165 here, we've got a little V. That's the kind of knobbly bit on the way into your ear canal. Then we've got this D shape there, but we've got a little V at the bottom, little curve. Now here we've got this V shape that makes the curve and crease of the ear there, and then the curve comes up with the shadow underneath. Now again, his neck coming down to the 185 line inside the collar. Now that's most of his face down, and we just need to get the collar and the bits. Now this is very, very bright and light. I'm just following the construction lines, bringing the curve down. And then right through that cross point down to the 265 line. You've got a little bit of the collar covered by the sleeve that's wrapped around his shoulders of his green sweatshirt. That goes off and up. Then we got here, we got like these little wiggly V points. You can actually count them, or you can just indicate them quickly like I did. Depends how absolutely accurate you want to be with those kind of details on the jumper, but we're going for the face and being quite impressionistic everywhere else. So now the collar goes up around the back, his hair out the back of his ear, a little fuzzy bit around the back before it comes down to these little points at the bottom. So now we've got the green at the back, that comes out, we've got a line that goes to the edge, and then there's that little V. Now down here we've got the collar again that comes up underneath his chin into the shadow, and then this is actually quite curved, so we're going to curve this over to join the point. Then we've got all this dark, this is this tie inside here, so we can just kind of imagine and loosely indicate a tie where that's going to be, but that's going to be very dark. And then we've got this knot down here of the sleeve, there's a little V, and again we've got this curve of the sleeve going over his shoulder, creating the shadow onto the cricket tank top. Then you've got the edge of this tank top, so I'm using the soft side of the pencil just to indicate that going down. There's a line there, you've got a crease line where the cabling is as well, and then the curve of that shoulder coming down. Now from the side of his cheek we've got these construction lines, that comes out, goes through the 185 just past the halfway point, that's between the 45 and 65 horizontal, and it comes down, just kinks over and comes over and curves off the edge of the page. And that's our outline down. Now again, I do this much darker than you need to, but that's so you can see it. Now again, we're now going to erase out all of the grid and the construction lines. This is just my usual Staedtler Mars plastic eraser, and I'm just going in very quickly in the big areas, because this is quite large and we can pull this out quite quickly. Again, I'm holding the paper down. I've got little bits of masking tape holding the corners, but I basically use this paper so as I don't get loads of grease on the actual artwork. Then I'm going right up and just getting rid of all of those grid lines. And because like if my hand was there now on the drawing holding this paper, I'd be getting grease on, and that would affect the way the graphite goes on the page. So always try and keep your hands clean, or as clean as possible. I mean, if you're using charcoal, then you end up filthy. And that's another reason why I like pencil. It's clean. You can stay relatively clean. I mean, you can use your finger to smudge, all that kind of stuff, which is fine, but it is relatively clean. So here we're going up inside the hair the best I can. Inside this dark area on the jumper. In the white of the sleeve, the numbers down the edge. So again, on this side now, where the dark is, of that sleeve that's coming around his left shoulder. Now, I still haven't found, I'm going to have to get a new one. I had a piece of card specifically to sweep up. Here's my sweeping brush. And you can see the ends of that. That's like a golden synthetic brush, but that black, that's pencil when I'm sweeping up. And yeah, I used to have a piece of card that actually said on it that it's for the rubbing out. And anyway, it's disappeared somewhere. I shall find it at some point. So that's first stage of erasing. Now I'm going to come in with this. So again, it's a Mars plastic eraser, and it just gives me a little bit more control because it's a little bit finer, and I can pull out the lines a bit closer without losing too much of the construction line. So like there next to his cheek, inside his ear, and inside the hair. So yes, you're going to lose some of your construction lines, but not enough. And again, you can take your time over this. You can be much more careful than I am, and take your time. But I'm just doing, like I say, I've got to get this done for you guys as quick as possible. Again, coming down through the hair, over the eye, underneath the left eye, in the eye socket, in that hair there, inside the nose, underneath the nose, in the lips, and then on his chin down here, and on his cheek. It's like there's a straight solid lines in that shadow next to his right eye. And that's looking pretty good. Again, you just have to keep looking because you do miss it. Like that's going to be very dark, so we can kind of skip a lot of those. Again, I'm just sweeping these off. And periodically, I'll just give these a wash with soap and water, warm soap and water, and that cleans everything off. So now I'm going to come in. This is my electric eraser. Just gives me very, very direct control. Now you can get very pointed little erasers. I just don't have one. I keep meaning to get one, but this is a good toy to have. This is a Derwent one. I just got it online. I think I got it from eBay. It's either eBay or Amazon or something like that. The reason being is I don't have any art stores really locally. I just have the range left. And that's it, but our specialist art stores have all gone, so I have to get most of my stuff online now. So, have all the lines gone? I think they have. Again, just get them off now. And there we have Jimin outlined down, ready to be shaded in a little bit. Hope you're having fun. This is great. I'm enjoying this, and I say we'll carry on to the next section. Right, so we're back in with the 2B pencil. And now we're going to just shade in all of Jimin's face. Now I'm just putting in a very light, loose tone. And remember, I do this just because it's something that I do. You don't have to smooth it the way that I do. You can just build up layers of tone like this as you go. But I just put in a kind of key tone all the way across where the flesh is, and then it just allows me to build up the other layers of tone around it. And that way I've got the full page, because like down the nose here is where the strongest highlight is. So just being careful to kind of leave that a little bit. And again, just filling in this key across the face. You can just do like I'm doing now, a cheek. Then you come down to the area of the lower chin. Then you can just fill in the lips. And if you don't spin the pencil like above the lips there, you get a nice flat highlight, lighter tone without the scratchy edge of the pencil tip, because it's just flattening down. So again, just down the neck. And then even, like, we can just quickly indicate much lighter and much quicker the light in the collar, the lighter tone in the collar, and then on this right hand side of his shoulder. Again, you can even come up and just quickly whack in, and if you squint you can kind of see where you need to come up to for where that band of highlight is. I'm just filling this tone in. Like on the other ones, I haven't done the hair, I've done all the face first, done a lot on the face. It just shows you there's no, you don't have to do exactly the same thing every time. But again, even on the hair now, even with these simple tones that I'm putting in, it's just going in the direction of the hair. Now here we've got this solid shadow coming all the way down. Now again, we've got the darker shadow right underneath the hair. Where this comes into this C shape here. Again, that's on the 485 line. You can see where that darker patch is. We need to come to this hair part that's coming down as well, this little point. Again, it's soft, we haven't got a solid line, so we can indicate that shadow a little bit more. And then the dark underneath the back. Now this is all with the 2B pencil. We will make it darker with a 4B and possibly even an 8B. This is just giving a very quick indication of where the darks are going to go. Now I'm not going to do this bit because we're going to do a lot of work and that will mess everything up. Now I'm going to come in with a piece of kitchen roll, toilet paper you can use, and I'm using a clean part. Again, this is from previous drawings, so you can just keep using it until you just think, yeah, I'll get a new one. And I actually smooth that first layer into the paper. It's just something that I like doing. You don't have to do it, but it just gives you the nice soft transition tones that you can be sure that you've then got no bright paper, only the strongest highlights. It's like there under the head, you know, you can just really push the paper around, the graphite into the paper. Again, on the hair you can do the same thing. I'm being light coming up over the top, but you then know that all of the hair is covered. See, I missed a bit down behind the ear, but I've literally just splodged a bit of graphite on from the kitchen roll. Now again, that's all dark, so just going to fold this over and just smooth this in on the lighter part, but very quickly. Now come in with the newer putty rubber, just knead it to a point. It's a kneadable eraser. And I'm just going to indicate that highlight up the centre of his nose, and then by the edge of his cheek, then up up on the lip in that V shape just underneath the nose. And we've got this edge by his cheek as well. And then I'm just highlighting a couple of bits on the ear. Now, when I've done the ones on the ear, just wiping that over, so you then smudged a little bit of graphite back in, and it just gives you a little bit more tone, and it's not as bright as the highlights on the nose that we actually have. So what we need to do now is just start building up some of the tone around the face. And so here we've got this tone around his eye. And right in where the tear duct is. Coming off, we've got this like dark shade underneath his left eye. That comes off to that point on the side. Then we've got a little kind of V shape that comes down underneath the left eye up into this corner. But it's darker where it comes underneath his tear duct. And a little bit coming out there. Again, we can just follow the curve round inside his left eyelid and then come down, and we've got the shade underneath the nose, this triangle of shade that's coming across, and then on the lips. So I'm actually drawing this now in the direction of the kind of creases on the lips. Just helps make it a little bit more real. And then we've got this darker shade kind of line coming up on the centre there. And you can see we've got this reflected highlight off his shirt in the centre of his upper lip. And it's dark above and then dark below. Then we've got the shape caused by his upper lip on the lower lip. And that curve coming around. Now, again, the edge of the nose, we've got this shadow coming up right on the right hand side of his nostril that curves around and up, and it just softens out. And then we want the shadow coming up into this right eye socket. So I'm just going to indicate some darker lines using the flat of the pencil into his eyebrow. And then we want this dark shade caused by his nose coming just onto his right cheek. Shade in the eye. Again, right in this corner, it's much darker. We've got that curve going up into the upper part of his eye socket. Again, I'm just indicating the darker transition into the hair there, going up onto the forehead. And then we've got this dark shadow coming down, and then it just kind of comes over. It's a little bit of a right angle. That dark going up. Again, we're just gently adding. Back into the corner. And under the right eye. Now again, coming down under the nose here, it's a bit darker. Now again, we'll end up darkening this down some more as well. But this is what you do. You just build it up slowly and carefully. Because the light is so strong and it makes the face so soft, we've just got to be careful. So again, coming down under the chin. And we've got a reflected highlight in the cheek up here. So coming to the edge. Then we've got this cheek line. The shadow coming right the way up. Again, just being careful, adding a little bit more tone, building it slowly. But already you can see we're getting much more three-dimensional structure onto the face. So again, we want the darker going up. So it's indicating where that dark goes, but it's a soft transition. And we can just bring the darker shade down on his forehead. And the side of his forehead. Underneath the eye again. Again, you've got this little light point down here. But you're just building up slowly, adding a little bit at a time. And this is what makes adding the tone a pleasure, because you start seeing the face actually starting to look out at you. So again, we want shadow now. Dark right next to the collar. But a little bit more tone caused just next to the collar as well. And then the tone under the neck is that a little bit darker. But then just lightens as it curves around up to the side of the neck. So now we've got a tone in the ear. crease up to the top, and we've got that hair coming over the top. Then the inner ear, we've got that shading. Just curve it gently and carefully. And then the side next to the hair. I'm resting my left hand on top of my right hand, not using the paper. We've got this shadow just on this crease part, and that goes up into the upper part of the ear. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to use a brush. This is just a little chiseled brush. So I want to push these transitions just because the lighting is so soft, and I want to push the graphite pencil around. And this is kind of how it's one way of building up hyper-real, photorealistic techniques. But it's because of going on to this very, very soft transitions, the brush is really, really good. Now we will be using a blending stump, but the brush, you are literally as if you are doing makeup, pushing the pencil around. And creating the tones that you want. On the actual face. And it is as if you're painting, but you're painting with the graphite. So there, coming up the side of the cheek, I'm just increasing that intensity because it's so light. But you've still got the highlight there and the highlight down the side. You can see just how simple and lovely that is. Again, the same, coming down under the nose, that shadow, the shadow into the eye socket. Again, just pushing the pencil around up onto the forehead. And it just gives us a good mid-tone then to work with. And we can build up on it, adding more detail lines, more shadow around the eyes, the lips, the nostrils. And yeah, it's just another really good technique that you can utilize. Now again, I've just done a lot in the dark, so I'm just wiping it on the kitchen roll. And that's really good so far. So now I'm going to come back in with a sharpened 2B pencil. And just trying to indicate some details. Like I say, just pushing in the nostrils a bit. So I need to be a little bit lower. So I'm going to come in with the dirty putty rubber. And I can just pull off some of the tone from above. Just to lower that down a little bit. And then just getting the edge of the shadow of the nostril. And like I say, his right nostril, again, just lowering it that little bit. Bringing the curve and the shadow. And then, yeah, that's a bit better. See, this is where you need to build slowly. Just add that tone in. So again, these lips now, just putting a darker line. It's soft. I'm using the edge of the pencil, putting that darker centre line in, but just softening it because it's not perfectly crisp. And this comes down. Then we've got that dark shadow above his lip going up. Dark shadow on the upper lip. And at the bottom part of the upper lip, again leaving that reflected highlight showing. And then just indicating the crease in between the two lips. So that goes up, and you can see from the centre of that nostril there's a kind of little V shape, and that's what pushes that out. Curve of the crease to the edge. Now again, just going to increase the darkness a little bit. We've got the curve going up over the top of his eye, coming down into where the tear duct is. And then right into the corner. Got that darker tone coming round underneath the eye. And again the same above. And then on this side we'll end up using a 4B. I'm just indicating slightly darker tone in the eye and around the eye. And now, again, just using the flat of the pencil to really push and boost that dark up. And again, the eyebrow. And a little bit up into the dark, into the hair. And then down this cheek. And that's another stage done, and we can just build up on the tone and just keep adding the detail. So now we're coming in with the 4B pencil, and we're really going to detail up. I just want the paper so as I don't smudge too much. We're going to detail up and darken Jimin's eyes. So we've got this dark upper eyelid, coming right down into the corner where his tear duct is, and then we can bring a little bit of dark coming up, and then we've got some of his eyelashes just coming over. But then on the edge of the iris, we're going to darken this down and around over that little kind of V shape of highlight, dark right to the edge. Filling in the dark up to the top. Again, I'm pressing on darker right in the centre where his kind of pupil is, and then you've got dark line underneath that little highlight. Again, I've left the top highlight so you can see that staring out. And now really we've got traction in the drawing with that eye really starting to stare out at us. Now if we come over to the right eye, we've got the dark coming all the way over, and then now I'm not pressing on as hard, but I'm still doing the dark for the lower eyelid. How that comes right over into the corner. We need to increase the dark in the tear duct. Darken the edge of the iris. Again, going around carefully where the highlight is. And then the same for the reflected highlight in the eye. I'm really darkening but softening it out, the edge of the iris, then filling in the eye, and then that reflected highlight is darker than the left eye because of its position. So again, we can just indicate some eyelashes coming over. We can darken the side of the eyeball, and then we've got this lovely dark shadow coming off the corner of his eye, and then going up into the upper part of the eye socket. Now, I don't know if you can hear the pitter-patter of rain on my window. I don't know how that may show up, but it is raining outside, and it's just nice to hear because my studio's in the loft, so I don't know how much overspill actually comes in now, but I do have to have the window open and people are kicking off with chainsaws. At the beginning of lockdown there was a lot of it going on, and again, I don't know how much turns up, but I do try and keep the sound as good as possible. But when it really starts to hammer down with rain, it's like pebbles hitting the roof, especially if it's hailing as well. Anyway, we're just darkening up around that eye. Now already you can see that's really pulled together the focal point of the drawing. So again, we've got that shadow coming up, And this is how you build up areas of the tone and detail. So again, I'm not twisting the pencil so as I've got the soft upper part, and we're just bringing that shadow down on his right cheek now. And all around here, that's going to have to darken down a lot more. Now, I'm going to come in. I'm actually going to use the 8B pencil because we've got an absolute ton of dark. Again, I just saw the tip snap off there. But we've got this hair coming down to this shadow. We're going to get his hair in quickly. And again, the eyebrow curving down. And that's his right eyebrow. Again, we can see the angle, how it goes up. Slightly diagonal from the corner. Now I'm using the soft side to just darken everything down around that eyebrow. Again, we can smooth it here. We've got this darker shadow that's cut in two. It's kind of, we've got a little triangle shape there, but it's cut in two by this sweeping piece of hair. Now, using the soft side of the pencil, just creating the soft transition edge from the forehead into the dark of the hair, this fantastic dark mass. Again, same on the top. Got this darker shadow coming down. Again, I'm just filling in a little bit on the forehead, and then in this V gap here, this inverted V, this point. Just filling in that tone. Now we're going to put in all of this dark. Again, I'm filling this in quickly, but I'm doing it in the direction. I'm trying to leave just a couple of little lines to fill it. Now I could just fill all that in jet black, but we've got some little highlighted lines coming down, which is just the hair falling in its natural way as it's being brushed. So that's the dark under the hair there. And then we've got this fantastic curve and shape of this just piece of hair coming across his forehead. So now here, this really is just dark jet black. It's just a dark shadow hole. We've got that going up over the top. So I'm just filling all of this in completely, but I'm still going in the kind of same direction that the hair would go. And that's fine for you to do, because it also gets stuck in your hand then. You know, you get used to drawing some things over and over, and you kind of think, well, yeah, I'll be doing that automatically. So if you train yourself to constantly think, right, okay, I'm going to draw the hair in the way that it goes, and it kind of keeps your pencil lines uniform and makes the actual drawing look together and complete. So now I'm just softening again that transition. next to the forehead. Now just darkening down those lighter lines that are left. So even though it looks jet black, it was actually some lines that are in there. So now we want this dark coming down right into the shadow on this eye socket. Now we're going to put in all these dark shapes of the shadow. So again, I want this just soft in his hair, but I just want the soft edge slightly, just so as the transition isn't a solid stark line. So I've just softened that bit off. And now we can indicate this dark. And these darker patches in his hair. And this is where the 8B is absolutely fantastic, but it does go down very quickly. And so now we've got some highlight bits of hair that are coming down and across his eyebrow here. So just leaving a couple of lines there. But now I'm just going to fill in that dark shadow of the eyebrow. Here we've got this second part of that V coming down. Now you can see that hair is just starting to frame the face and the eyes and making those stand out that little bit more. So here now we want quickly shadow lines coming down. This little bit of hair down by his ear. Now there's some little highlights. Again, I'm just leaving some slightly lighter bits to indicate the hairs that are crisscrossing over and are just highlighted. Again, this funky blue rinse is no different if you've got just straight dark brown hair or black hair, there'd still be highlighted bits in there, and that's where you're looking for tone and not thinking about the colour. So you're just right on top of the ear, and we've got this little V at the back, little V there, but then you've got this larger one, and then little kind of leaf shape. Again, I'm just indicating very quickly where these need to go. Now, right by his neck, we've got dark right into next to the neck as it goes down and up to the ear. And then it just fuzzes out a little bit, just a little bit lighter, not putting as much pressure on, coming to the edge. And then up around the back of the ear. Then we've got more dark. And then right up on the top. Now again, I'm just spinning the pencil. There's hardly any sharp bits left now. So just sharpen that up a little bit. Oh, and there goes the tip. Like I say, the tip just snaps off because it's so soft if you put too much pressure on. So coming from the parting, coming over the left hand side. Over the top of the hair. And again, it's quite interesting. Somebody, I got asked again about hair. They sent me just a photo of the dad or uncle or someone, and they said, you know, how can I draw this hair? And it's like, watch a tutorial, see how I draw hair, and then apply it to your own drawing. You have to draw it in the direction the hair is growing, and use appropriate pencils. And it was very dark hair, so I said, you need to use 4B and 8B. Just be careful, and you build up slowly the transitions in the areas. So now coming over, we've got the shadow on this darker side. Right up to the edge on the right hand side of his head, then coming over to where the parting is at the back. And I'm using the top of the pencil now, just indicating where some of the shadow lines are in the direction, just using the 8B just to put in some defining directional underneath shadows. And now we can do this at the back. And now you can see we've got a lot covered. I'm just sharpening that up again. And now I'm using the side and tip of the pencil, but very quickly. Just looking, because we've got this much lighter highlight. I'm trying not to snap the tip of the 8B pencil off because it's just so soft. So now coming up to the back of the head, again we're just filling this in really quickly. Just trying to fill in that tone because the highlight is here at this front part. So we can fill more of this darker blue in this area down the front. We just need to leave those lighter tones showing through. So then coming off the top of the head in the centre parting, coming down to where that highlight is. Now, again, coming off, so we've got this C shape coming round. It's darker on the top. Coming out from the centre parting, going up and over. Now you can see we've got all of the lighter bits still showing through, and that's the paper actually showing through in between the lines. Now putting some darker lines as we curve around on this C shape. And that's the bulk of all the hair in. Now what I'm going to do is come in with the kitchen roll, and I'm just gently softening and smoothing, and even this highlight I'm going over, it's just smoothing the pencil over. And that way we lose all the paper showing through. Now again, I kind of went a little bit out, but you can just remove that quickly using the putty rubber. But you can see already that his hair is actually starting to look very real, sitting on the top of his head. Now again, I'm coming back in and just crossing over because we've got some of the hairs that are sweeping, you know, how it's brushed and styled, and they're just crossing over. But I'm using the dirty putty rubber, and this, just keep pinching it to a sharper point. And this gives us a little bit more reality. Again, you don't have to do this, it's just something, it's another technique, and you can build up and develop it, or you can use chalk pencil or something to try and put your highlights in. But I just like, now we're into the highlight area, I just like giving you the tools and techniques. So here you can see the highlights really standing out, and there's a lot more in there, so I've just put more into that area. But I like giving you the tools and techniques to just use pencils, and then you can experiment and develop skills how you want. So just a few going up to the back, but less than here to make that stand out. And then we've got the curve coming round. We've got a stronger highlight on there. That's looking really, really lovely. Now I'm going to come in and use this blending stump. Again, I'm going in the direction of the hair. And the blending stump is just working with the pencil, using it as a drawing tool to just pull some of the tones through, and even through those highlighted areas here. But then now if we come down into the shadow area under the hair, onto the forehead, we're using the blending stump just like a pencil, and just increasing the tonality, and you're able to push the pencil around. So here you can see we're just increasing that shadow on the right hand side of his forehead, and then where it joins the hairline at the top, we can make the transition softer so that there's no hard defining line. And again, right underneath the hair, we can do that. And then we need to carry this transition on underneath this piece of hair. that sweeps across. And that's looking really lovely. So now we're just coming quickly in on the eye, down the side of the nose. Again, I'm just using the blending stump. Just keep looking at the reference. Slightly darker shadow line over the top of the eyelid, just right where it's next to the eyeball itself. And then you've got this curve at the top of his eye. But then here you can see, coming over to this eyebrow, it's darker. So we can bring the transition down from the forehead. Got this little highlight area here. But that comes over just going to take some of the pencil off, and we need to come and bring the shadow out from this eyebrow, and it curves over and comes down the nose. And then right inside the nose, into the left eye. Again, you can see it's darker, you've got that tone over the top of his left eye, and then it curves higher still where the eyelid goes into the eye socket, and then up and underneath. And again, I'm just pushing the pencil in the direction that the eye is going. And then this darker tone that comes out from under his eye. We can actually just gently darken the eyeball down as well. And then right in the corner, coming off to the side of the nose. Again, just slowly and carefully building up the tones. We've got lots more to add and build down here. Again, underneath his right eye, and then coming down. But that already you can see is really starting to look more and more like a complete face. And we've just got the nose and the lips and the ears, and like I say, just carry on building the shading up. So now we are back in with a 4B pencil and we're going to darken up the nostril. Both of them. So we've got dark on the right nostril, and then now that curves underneath, and the same coming across the centre of his lips. And then as we get to the edge, we've got to just soften that out, and then we can just blur this all the way over. But we've got a bigger dark coming around the curve of his lower lip. And then we've got more of the shadow coming across the lower lip. And then we've got that diagonal coming over. Now, on the upper lip, we've got the dark tone. We've got this little reflected highlight in between. And then the tone coming over onto the left hand side of his lip. A little bit darker underneath. And then we've got a little bit of shadow going up to the top. A little darker tone. And then we can just darken down the right hand side of his upper lip, where you've got that reflected highlight. Again, the shadow curving down underneath the lower lip. And it just gets brighter, just lighter as it comes around. And obviously we've got this very strong highlight here. So now bringing more of the tone around the lip, we've got a couple of little darker lines coming around there, but already you can see that's making the lips look a lot more realistic. So if I come in with the blending stump, we can really soften the edge of where his two lips are joined for the entrance to his mouth. Again, I'm softening the shadows coming out underneath his nostrils. And this curves down, and you've got this slight darker shadow coming up and over and underneath. Then right on the edge of his nose, got this shadow with reflected highlights above and below on the nostril. And that's going to go darker as well. We can just bring that up to the edge. And then again, softening the side of the shadow where it comes over his nose. You can see the straight line comes up and it's above. You draw a line across, you can see how that goes up and over. So it goes straight up and then we've got the shadow in the crease in between his upper lip and the bottom of his nose. So now I'm going to come in with a 2B pencil. Just make sure I get the right one. Just because we've got this kind of lighter shadow, you know, it's not as obviously as dark as up in the hair, but we can just build the tone up carefully using the flat side of the 2B pencil. So I'm coming off his lower lip, and then it curves around, a little reflected highlight underneath. And then this comes across underneath his chin. And then we've got this diagonal bit of shadow that comes down right around the bottom of his chin. But we've got this little darker bit that comes down. Now we've got this, it's reflected light off his jumper on his cheek. So I'm using the flat, and it doesn't matter about me going over the edge because the sleeve of his jumper that's over his shoulder is dark. So we can just cover that edge nicely. And then we can build the shadow up to where his eye is. And again, I'm just quickly going backwards and forwards, just pivoting from my shoulder and elbow. My hand is just resting, just going backwards and forwards on the paper. I'm not using my wrist, I'm going from my shoulder and my elbow, using my arm to pivot. And that way you can build up the tone. So you can see we've got that nice darker line with that reflected highlight. And again, the shadow coming down off the nose. Now we need darker here. But just using the 2B means we've got that little bit more control. Now, as we come down off this eye, again, just using the 2B very gently. And we're just filling in, coming across the cheek to the nose. Just building up the tone very, very carefully, because the light makes it so soft. So again, coming off from the chin, down the cheek. And we're going to come up here and leave this highlighted bit. And there's a reflected highlight here on the edge. So now I'm just going in between, leaving the highlighted areas. And just nicely and quickly increasing the tone where we need it. And leaving that highlight there. And already you can see that little passage of tone down the cheek is working with us, and it's leaving that V-shaped shadow underneath his eye. Again, the curve of the cheek going over towards where the nose is. And up the top of the nose. Coming into the shadow of the forehead. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in using the soft brush to just smooth those transitions. Now you can just leave the pencil work, and that's absolutely fine. But I'm just trying to show you quickly how to get very, very kind of photographic results. And I am literally brushing as if like you're doing makeup. And so here I am brushing the pencil down towards his corner of his mouth, and it's just little by little. And this is a very, very soft brush, and it just softens the transitions around the tones. Very, very lovely. So again, back in with the 2B. Need a bit more down on the bottom of his chin. And then coming up the side of his cheek and his jawline. And then again the neck underneath. we can build that tone up a little bit more. Again, I'm just twisting it to try and get the flattest part. And then we're coming up underneath the neck, the jawline, sorry, up the side of the neck to underneath the ear. So again, you can see that's just building that tone up. Now I'm going to use the bigger brush. You can use kitchen roll or a cotton bud. And that's just pushing that tone around very quickly. That's really lovely. Now I'm going to come back in. I'm just going to clean the edge of that brush off, but I'm coming in now with the 2B pencil, using the tip because it's sharper and stronger. I can actually indicate some of these darker lines in the hair, and it just gives that a little bit more reality to the hair. Again, I'm just twisting the pencil so it's keeping the top of it sharp as we go along and around the head, but I'm still drawing the lines in the direction that the hair is growing and is brushed and styled. I've got a couple of little darker bits there, and you can see coming up into this slightly highlighted bit at the back, then coming up to these highlighted parts. Now we've got the hair coming over from the centre parting. Again, I'm being quite impressionistic, you know. I'm not, if you want this to be absolutely photographic, then you've got to spend a long time on this. So again, I've just put a load in, and I can just pull off some of the highlights again. Keep pinching the putty rubber. And you can see how you get that nice light effect. Again, there's different companies' putty rubbers. I think in the I've got a video up, it's the how to draw a zombie with a zombie pencil, the beginning of that, but I also did it separate, just about the pencils, the graphite pencils that I use. And I'll show you like the different putty rubbers, but this one that I use is Dale Rowney's putty rubber, or kneadable eraser, depending what you need to search for. And I just find them fantastic. I have used them now for over 30 years, and they're just absolutely brilliant. So again, there you can see that's just pulled the highlight up on the hair that comes across the front. Just some little lines. So now if I come back in with the blending stump, we can soften those down again. But we've now got more definition in the hair. So again, the same curving around. I'm just going to sharpen this now. think that's the last time that I can actually sharpen this one now. So here with the hair coming down and across, we've got the shape coming around. And then some of these hairs coming across the forehead. I'm just indicating a few more and we can really show up his eyebrow hairs now. Again, just twisting using the sharp point of the pencil. And over in the dark on the right hand side, again we're going to have to darken this down. And then right on that curve in that corner. Again, just using the 2B you get more control, so here I can just grade up that dark a little bit into a lighter tone, so you got the dark right on the edge. We can now, again we've got those hairs sticking right off. Indicate some more of the hairs coming out of the side. And this bit at the back. It just looks nice wispy hairs at the back, very light but quick. Again, you can use a 2H and other pencils for this kind of work, but I just love showing you what you can do with a quite limited set of materials. I also use clutch pencils, mechanical pencils, that keeps the actual nib size the same. And that's probably what I would be doing for this if it was a longer term drawing that I was trying to complete. So that's looking really, really nice. Again, now we've got to build up the shadows that little bit more. So that's the 2B. Now this is my 8B. And I'm using the tip, but very lightly. I'm not pressing on too hard because I want soft edges and softer tones. So this is coming up the side of his nose to the corner of his eye. And we're coming under. And we've got this dark that goes up and across to where the eyebrow is. So again, I'm using the flat side of the pencil. Now I'm softening all around the eyebrow, curving the shadow down. And then we've got this lovely dark right in the corner of the eye, with a little bit coming over the top of the eye lid. Curve of the upper part of the eyelid in the eye socket. And then we've got this lovely deep shadow coming off corner of his eye. And then just coming down that little bit to the side of his head. And now you've got that darker shadow coming down to the cheek. Going up, got a couple of little reflected highlights in there. We can pull those out a little bit with a putty rubber in a little bit. So again now, just gently feathering some tone, the curve of the cheek. So you get darker tone right in the corner and underneath that little bit of hair that comes down right next to the eye. And then we've got this shadow here. Now again, the shadow coming off caused by his nose across his upper lip. Got this darker tone just above the top lip that then just softens out, but it does come all the way up. Then we got a little bit of darker tone inside the centre bit of the nose. Underneath part. So even with an 8B you can actually fill in some lovely tones. This shadow now right on the edge just makes a triangle in this little bit on the right hand side of his nose, but it just needs to be softened out at the edges, and there's a little reflected centerpiece to it. So now the cheek coming down. Filling the tone up, coming up to the lip. And then down on the chin. Underneath the chin on his neck. And that's absolutely fantastic. We'll see this tone develop more when we put the dark in on his shirt. But now that's looking really lovely, and we'll just carry on building up some more tone. So back with the 2B pencil, and we're going to add some more tone and detail to this ear. Now we've got the curve that comes over, and we've got this shadow in by the outer ear that comes down, but there's a darker outline with a reflected highlight in, and then we've got the curve coming up. We've got this little triangle here, and the like just the outer edge of the inner ear. We've got a bit of shadow coming around, and then that shadow goes right the way up to the top. Now bringing this down, we've got shadow underneath the earring of the little stud earring. So there's the ball, and then we've got shadow right on the bottom of the ear, and then the curve goes up. So in the actual inner ear part, we've got the ear coming down and around. Shadow right in that bottom corner. I'm just gently feathering it. Again, underneath the hair, we can just bring the shadow down to the ear, join it up with the shadow that's caused by this part that comes down here as well, and just darken it underneath that little bit. Now, the end of this is actually quite dirty, so sometimes you do clean this up, and I trim my blending stump using a scalpel blade. I think some people use like nail files. So yeah, I've cleaned off as much as I can, but it still means it's a little bit dirty. Which means I should be able, to draw with this. So I've got the soft tone of the lower part of his earlobe, and then where that comes down, I'm filling the tone in on the lower part of his earlobe, leaving that highlighted bit above, then softening the edge into the ear canal entry, and then these shapes inside the inner part of his ear, curving round, and then above I'm just now shading that nicely. It gets a little bit lighter here, so I'm just being careful, but darkening where it creases over at the top, and then softening the edge where it comes over it just curves over that lovely little shape there. Now, very lightly, just going to clean that off a bit. Yeah, there's a lot of pencil on that. Very, very carefully, just increasing the tone underneath the jawline. And then working, coming across up the neck. Right the way up to the corner. Again, we'll pull the highlights off when we need. Just cleaning it that little bit again. Now on the inside part of his chin, going up to that highlight. So now, in exactly the same way as I was using a pencil, I'm doing the same pushing the pencil just around his cheek, the shadow around his nose, the corner of his nostril. Again, the right dark part where it joins the cheek, I can just really soften that. And the tonality coming round. Again, when you squint, you can kind of see the tone that you need. So I'm just bringing it down slowly and carefully from the cheek. Up the nose, and that's looking really, really lovely. So now we want the same, but down around the side of the cheek, underneath the chin. And if you don't want this kind of very smooth transition, then you just leave the pencil lines. But this is, you're drawing with this, and with a brush and with a piece of toilet paper or kitchen towel. It's a drawing tool. And the fact that I can get these done in a few hours for you is absolutely lovely. It's a real joy and pleasure just to be able to show you what you can do with simple pencils and simple equipment. There, that's looking rather splendid. So now we've got the dark coming down his chin, again the side with that reflected highlight. So here right next to the lip, it's much darker where it comes out. So I'm just cleaning some of that off again because I want to just soften this bit on the bottom of his nose. Where this comes under. Now I'm going to come back in now using the old putty rubber, and on the top of the earlobe we've got a nice crease that comes up and around. We've got some highlights, and then on the entrance just inside the ear canal I'm just dabbing. How that comes over, I'm just dabbing up at the top, and then right on the top of the ear, there's a highlight there, and coming down next to the stud. Again, I'm now just coming back in and lightly going over. You can use the brush or you can use your blending stump. And so you've got the highlights in, but you've actually sent them back and made them not as strong. So, again, on the corner of his neck here, coming up, and I'm dabbing. And right on his cheek. That's quite a strong one there. So that's fine going up. And then this one right by his eye. Just dab that. And the upper lip. That highlight on the lower lip. Little highlight underneath the corner. And the V between his two lips. Reflected highlight underneath the nostrils. And just dabbing and pulling a little bit of highlights out. So we're now on the strong highlight coming up the nose. Now, right in the corner, where his tear duct is, just a little bit of highlight coming off underneath that V there. Again on this side, little bit of highlight on the upper eyelid, above the eyebrow. And that's giving us a lot more life. Little bit on the cheek here. Under the eye. And here we've got that reflected highlight on the side of his head. But again, I'm now coming in, I'm just wiping the end of my blending stump. And the reflected highlights underneath the nostril, I'm just feathering over those. Again, the ones inside the eyes. And this one up on his forehead just knocks them back a little bit. Now, the one on his cheek, I'm using the brush because that'll give me the softest transition that I'm after. Then down the side of the neck. And that's looking really lovely. So we've got a lot of the detail done. There's a lot done now in the face. And we need to build up around now his jumper. So we're going to come in with the 8B pencil. Yep, that's the 8B. And we've got a lot of dark, but this is going to be quite impressionistic. So I'm carefully coming up to the collar. And I'm not going to go right to the edge of the paper. And because you're looking in the face, you can get away with a whole load more. So I'm really indicating the dark, but the darker lines. So here now we've got the sleeve coming down. I've just got a couple of little creases there, but you can see out from here all the way over, this is all very dark. So even though I've indicated where, oh, the entire bit of that's gone. How's it? Yep, it's on its way out. It's kind of it's nearly snapped off. Yeah, that's gone. So this is the 8B. It's just super soft. You've got to be careful. Nope, there goes the end again. But you're just able to fill in large areas very quickly. So I've come down by the collar. Now I'm just going over softly, just to soften off that tonal end. Now, here we are going to be very careful coming up the line of his cheek. Again, I'm using the soft of the pencil, going as close to the line as I can. So that I don't go over his face. And you can see there now that's really lifted out that reflected highlight for us. Because you're actually using the interplay of the tones that you've put down on the face and the dark that you're putting down in this jumper. So now I'm just filling in as quickly as possible. Again, I'm being quite impressionistic at the bottom, you know, big strokes, which is quite nice. And the pencil's just flattening down really quickly. And you have to be careful because you can end up hitting the wood and scratching your paper. But I press on, when I'm doing this kind of stuff, I press on so hard that I'm really scouring the paper anyway. And I like that. I really like that effect where you can see the light shine because you've burnished the pencil into the paper. You've really pushed the graphite in. See, I think that's really, really lovely. So again, I'm just turning the pencil so as I don't hit the wood to get as much out of this pencil as I can. And before I had these pencil extenders, you know, they would literally, your pencils would go. That's the last time that's going to get sharpened. So we've got this dark, and I'm just squiggling that down. But you can see now that's really framed Jimin's face for us. And this is where your drawings can come together very, very quickly. So now I'm bringing that slightly lighter tone down. We've got this little kind of zigzag bit. And now just filling in that tone, quickly coming over. Like I say, I'm not going right to the bottom. But that looks rather lovely. Now we've got a shadow coming up the centre, and then one underneath at the bottom. It's like that I didn't really want to go right to the edge, but I did, and that happens. So now the dark over the top of his left shoulder. So I'm just filling in all the mid-tone. And then you want slightly darker for the creases. So that's looking really lovely. Now I'm just coming in. I'm going to use the blending stump. Again, just pushes the pencil around, nice and simply. But then what you can do is you use the blending stump. So we've got this darker shadow down here. Then comes up underneath the collar, and that goes off over to the corner. Again, edge of the collar, I'm just wiggling some lines down. That's the kind of folds on the collar. Oh, that fold, it's like where it's sewn into the material. And the edging stitching. So now we've got that darker shadow on the inside of this collar. That curves up and over. And the underneath part and the shadow caused by the collar going all the way round. So now carefully coming in for this darker shadow. We can bring the darker, this is with the 8B still. We need to increase the dark on the right hand side of the collar. Where that comes down, goes under the neck. Again, on the lips we can just increase that dark shadow through the centre and right on this bottom lip on the corner. And that's looking super lovely. So now the same on this side, we've got the darker shadow caused by the sleeve that comes over. The creases. And you can see we've got like those little patterns coming up on the edge of the tank top, the kind of cricket tank top. And then the cabling on the jumper. I'm actually going to come in with a 4B pencil because we've got some little semicircle little lines that are coming up, and we've got the little circles inside them just in that patterning on the actual jumper as it goes up. And then we can just indicate some more of the shadow, just do a little bit of cross hatching, how that comes up. This is how you can get the shape and just a little bit of detail quite impressionistically. But all that soft work that you've just done helps using the blending stump. Like I say, you can use a cotton bud, that's fine. You see me doing that in Ariana Grande. That's the patterning there in that jumper. Now again, we've got a little bit showing round on this side where this comes down. Increase a bit of definition on the shirt. I just literally just put some wiggly lines in. And that's looking absolutely fantastic. So now crisp the top of the collar up, a couple of little highlighted bits inside the edge, and right on the edge where that curves over, just around the neck. Again, this is really good, and that's getting us now close to final details. So now I'm going to come in with the 4B pencil, and we're now going to pull up the final details. Again, you can keep going as long as you want, and we want this shadow underneath this eye, so it comes off on this corner. Then we've got this shade over the upper eyelid. And the second one that's slightly higher, giving us that curve. And this comes down around his tear duct. Now we've got darker line into that corner. Just being careful not to knock out the highlight on his eyeball. Again, this is the 4B pencil. Now we're coming down corner of the nose, left nostril where it joins the cheek. Then we've got this diagonal shadow that comes across. And going right up into the nostril there. Darker tone framing the lip. A little bit darker on the upper lip. So now this shadow coming off the nostril. You see how that just comes down a little bit to make this little highlighted area here. Now we can come over to this reflected highlight, just darkening that as we go up towards the eye. Dark above the nose, and then in the corner of that eye, going around to the eyebrow. Again, this lovely dark area on his right eye is absolutely fantastic. Darker just underneath that hair. Softening the transition onto the forehead again. And that's really, really lovely. So now even the reflected highlight, I'm just softening that down a little bit. Widening the dark on the cheek here. Then right underneath the chin, onto his neck. Now I want the 2B pencil, and we're going to add some of these detail layers. I'm just going to try and... no, it's not going to happen. That really is the last sharpening. So I'm being careful not to smudge everything all on this black down here. So we've got the hairs coming over the ear, and again down this bit down the side of his head. We've got hairs that come out and down, and then this sweep that comes across the front. That's making us just softening that bit by the neck. We need to just fill that in a little bit, and then we've got, like I say, you can see we've got these hairs that are coming down and across his eye. This is where the sharp 2B pencil actually helps, and that curves across. But you can press on with the 2B and get a good dark line. And into where it all goes towards the centre parting. Again, these are just good last nice details. I'm just turning the pencil. This is the 2B, remember, and you can get some really good dark lines. So again, I really do need a sharp point, so I'm going to use this one now. It's still a 2B pencil. We've got hairs coming down across his right eye, and some off the edge. Now, I'm using the clean putty rubber. And that's going to pull up the strongest highlights. Just pull those out in his eyes a little bit. Left eye, we can just pull up a little bit. Highlight on the corner of his cheek. And just coming under that line underneath his left eye. Underneath the nostril. And that little bit on his lip. Now the bit on his lip. Can you just put the lines in of his lip coming down and round. So now I'm going to come in with the 8B, darken the centre of the nostril, and I have to say that's looking really, really lovely. Just cleaning off the end of the blending stump. can just push the shadow about a little bit. Then I'm going to come in with the brush. Again, just softening some of these transitions. So they're going up underneath the hair and out towards the side. Down the neck. Then up the nose, underneath the nose. And it just softens. So again, you can see I'm literally just brushing over the eyebrow. And it just softens the transitions. That's looking really, really lovely. Again, just got some little bits on the drawing that I didn't want, bits of pencil that I just plinged off. Again, just picking up these highlights. And then final shadow down underneath the chin. Pull up some highlight on the actual collar, and then you can just knock that back again. Then you can come in with the 2B and you can crisp up that definition line on the cheek. So you can see here that just comes out to where the lip is. And then we've got the shadow coming down the edge. And that is Jimin complete. I hope you've had fun doing that. I've had an absolute blast. Oh no, he's nearly complete. Hang on. We've got a little wiggly bit in his earring with the highlight showing on the top. Now that's Jimin complete. I kept looking at that earlier thinking, must fill that ear, the little stud in, the little bit on the stud. Anyway, I hope you've had fun. I've really enjoyed doing this. And we've done 5 of BTS and there's 2 left to go. Anyway, thanks ever so much, and I'll see you in the next drawing video. Ta-da!